3rd, 21 Planning Commission meeting. Lisa, did you want to take the roll?
Chair Elaine Barton.
Here.
Commissioner Patrick Blees.
Here.
Commissioner Eric Brenna.
Here.
Commissioner Rick Geldman.
Here.
Commissioner John Mungy.
Here.
And Commissioner Andrew Weiss is an excused absent.
Okay, thank you. We do have a quorum. So first item of business is to adopt the agenda. Unless anyone has anything they want to add to it, I'll entertain a motion to adopt it.
Move to adopt the agenda.
A motion by Rick. Is there a second?
Second.
Aye.
Yeah.
Second by Patrick. Alrighty, Lisa, take the roll.
Chair Elaine Barton.
Aye.
Commissioner Patrick Blees.
Aye.
Commissioner Eric Brenna.
Aye.
Commissioner Rick Geldman.
Aye.
Commissioner John Mungy.
Aye.
And Commissioner Andrew Weiss is absent.
Alrighty. We have an agenda. Next is approval of the special meeting minutes for May 20. I'm going to assume we don't have the regular meeting minutes ready for May.
I did forward those late this afternoon after I got your email. I can send them again.
Well, maybe we'll. Did anybody get them?
I did.
I got them.
I got him. Yep.
I didn't see them, so I don't know if we want to hold off on approving those until we all have a chance to read through them and then do that at the next meeting, or did you want to approve them now?
There's no like legal timing issue that you have to approve
Right.
it.
Right.
Okay.
But if you wanted to, I would suggest that we move back to the adopt the agenda and add those minutes to the agenda if you wish to adopt them.
If we want to approve them.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. What does everybody think? If people, has everybody else read them? Let me ask.
No, you don't recognize me.
It's on TV.
I've read them and had one correction. I don't know if that's helpful now or if we want to hold it until when we do
Get closer and ask Elaine.
take action on them.
Elaine, you see me?
Yep.
John, did you read them?
No, I did not get a chance. I just got home.
As long as we've got them in our email, we can just read them and then, while it's still relatively fresh in our minds, and then we'll just deal with approving them at the next meeting, if that's all right with everyone.
Okay.
Good.
Okay, so we'll just go ahead with approval of the special meeting minutes from May 20th. Anybody have any corrections to those? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Moved by Eric. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Rick. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay. Lisa, you're on.
Chair Elaine Barton.
Aye.
Commissioner Patrick Blees.
Aye.
Commissioner Eric Brenna.
Aye.
Commissioner Rick Geldman.
Aye.
Commissioner John Mungy.
Aye.
And Commissioner Andrew Weiss is an excused absent.
Did you catch Alan Worm?
Yeah.
How come I'm not on?
Well, I think that looking at my agenda, your name is listed after Andrew Weiss, so I think, Lisa, if you just add him to the bottom of the list, you won't be forgotten.
Commissioner Alan Warren.
There.
Emphatically.
Did you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. All righty, those minutes are approved. Then we'll move on to meeting open to the public. This is the time that's anybody who's here to provide input to the commission on something that's not on the agenda has the opportunity to do so. Eric, do we have anybody in attendance?
We have nobody in attendance. Everybody is here on the screen. There's nobody additional here.
Okay. Well, I can't see everybody, so.
The only people in addition to the commission are myself and Lisa Wong, and then the meetings
Okay.
IT person. So
Not that I disbelieve you, it's just one of those. Alrighty, we have no public hearings, no business action items or recommendations, so we're down to old business, which is a continuation of the outdoor storage conditional use permit for 2310 Highway 36 East with the Shifsky operation. So, Eric, I see you shared your screen.
okay, great. Thank you. I have all the slides that we had the last time and updated them with the revised plans, but I'll probably go through them quickly, just left them, in case we have to go back. But the background is, again, this is for T.A. Shifsky's and Sons, 2310 Highway 36. The proposal is to include the addition of 3 55-foot silos, a scale, and associated equipment. Existing operation is a legal non-conforming use in the MU3 district. Shifsky's business, they currently operate the asphalt plant, crushing operations and related uses on the property. I won't go through all this again. This is the same as last time. They are a legal non-conforming use. There is a provision in the code for them to expand. These are the conditions involved in them. The one that we'll talk about as we talk about other items here, the 4th condition. This expansion needs to, the very last sentence is, needs to meet the comprehensive plan and district objectives while providing good aesthetics and functionality during the interim. But this is administrative and doesn't require planning commission or city council approval. So the request is for a conditional use permit for the outdoor storage, and that is the resolution that we will be preparing, and we will be looking at conditions to address the outdoor storage of the 3 silos, scales, and associated equipment. The silos are the principal structure of the asphalt use. And again, this is reviewing the silos and associated equipment and not the asphalt plant itself. So essentially this box, but as I mentioned in the provision for the expansion, and we'll go through with some of the screening provisions, we're going to be looking outside this box in we need to address how to mitigate the visual impacts of the silos by improvements on the site to provide additional screening. So the 3 conditions there's 3 regulations for conditional use permits for outdoor storage is that it needs to be located outside of the front yard and placed and not be placed between the principal building and the abutting street. B is that it shall be completely screened from the adjacent street, sidewalk, public walkway, or public park. And that the outdoor storage shall be screened from the abutting residential uses with a wall, solid fencing, or evergreen hedge. Regarding the standards, they meet all the standards of the zoning district. The silos, this is a picture of the 3 set of silos that they'll be purchasing. You see the scale underneath the 3 silos, and the trucks will be moving through the set of all 3. they've revised their proposal from the last meeting that they were proposing a 16-foot solid concrete wall, and the code standard is that the screening can't be any taller than 6 feet. Oops. So they are proposing a 6-foot chain link fence with plastic slats along the south half and about 175 feet of 3rd Street North. You do see here that they've placed the alignment of Anchor Drive on the west side of 3rd Street, and they've realigned the southern access to align with Anchor Drive. So that is where the fencing is missing. Otherwise, it goes right up to the existing building on 3rd Street. So one of the big things we need to consider here with fencing with plastic slats is there's a number of standards that address this. First, for the expansion of a non-conforming use, does this fencing with plastic slats meet the requirement of providing good aesthetics and functionality during the interim? And we have the requirement that it be completely screened. And then on top of that, the fencing requirement for non-residential and mixed-use sites is the requirement that it only be decorative fencing materials, such as painted wrought iron or anodized metal fencing. So when we have code requirements that are in conflict with each other, the most restrictive applies. So in this case, we need to determine which is the most restrictive. Good aesthetics is the goal, but doesn't actually state what the requirement is. The requirement for outdoor storage is completely screened. The requirement for decorative fencing says items such as painted wrought iron and anodized metal, which typically are not completely solid. So we have conflicting sets of code, and we need to determine which is the most restrictive standard for Shifsky to meet. They have provided additional landscaping outside the fence, including 8 white pines, 6 Black Hill spruce, 4 Charlotte letter column oaks, and 2 common hackberry. This exceeds the landscaping requirement of 1 tree per 50 linear feet. And again, the area in the middle is the area where the silos will be, but the infrastructure, such as the fencing and the landscaping to screen that area, are located at the perimeter of the site. Parking, they're not proposing any additional parking. None of these statements have changed. Access and circulation functions the same as previously, that they wouldn't be, the 4th silo was very faint there, but in the same location east of the 3 proposed new silos, the trucks would have to move underneath all 4 of them to get loaded under any one of the 4 silos. They did make the modification to align this south entrance with Anchor Drive. They also included 16 shrubs and perennial grasses at the entrance to help mitigate that entrance. And then finally, they will be required to do some improvements at the accesses to minimize tracking of sediment onto the existing streets. No major changes to the drainage or natural resources on the site. No proposed changing to the existing light fixtures. So again, we're coming up with the 3 outdoor storage standards for the conditional use permit of the outdoor storage. First, is it located outside of the front yard, which would be 2nd Street, because that is the shortest of the front? And is it placed behind the buildings and not between the buildings and the abutting street? The second is the outdoor storage completely screened from any adjacent street, sidewalk, public work-way, or public park? So that's evaluating, is the chain link fence and plastic cladding, completely screening those silos. And then finally, is the outdoor storage screening the abutting residential uses with a wall, solid fence, evergreen hedge, or equivalent, and that must be 6 feet. So the townhouses that are being constructed south of Gateway Trail are to the southwest. So we are proposing 4 conditions. We used to have 6 in the previous requests. The 2 that were removed were relocating that southern entrance on 3rd Street to align with Anchor Parkway, and the requirement for fencing detail before it goes to the city council. So the 4 that remain are revised set of plans prior to the building permit submittal, upgrading the site plan for improvements to prevent sediment tracking, make sure they get permits from every other agency that's involved. And just to clarify, even though they state that it's 5 feet within the driveway, I guess that should be, the screening fence should be located on the property. One thing that you might want to consider, they did provide an email that they will work with the city to explore the possibility of having the murals on the silos, but the Planning Commission can consider if they want to make that a 5th condition. So with that, I'd stand for any questions.
Thanks, Eric. Questions, comments?
I had a question. What size, when they say those 8 white pines and all the different things, what size would they be? Do they say some kind of a could be a sapling, or is it 6 feet or?
No, this would be on page 21 of your packet.
Okay.
Granted, it's a little detailed in the the lower right-hand side, but the Black Hill spruce and the white pines would be 6 foot tall when they're installed, and the hackberry and oaks will be 2.5 caliper inches when installed.
Okay.
So that's the code requirement. It's not
Thank
more
you.
than the code requirement, but that's the minimum for those linear trees.
Thank you.
So there is, I have a question. This is Patrick. 2 questions, I think. I know that there's ordinance requirement to not plant trees in easements. Is there no easement around this perimeter where these trees are planted?
Well, 2 things. First, we haven't found an easement. These are unplatted properties. And the second thing is the city council has continued the code amendments that the Planning Commission has forwarded, and that's one of the amendments. So today that's not part of the code, but we've communicated with our electric light and power department, and they don't have records of easements on this property.
Okay, that's good. The other question is there's a dashed line. I don't know, maybe Eric, maybe you can answer this. A dashed line that runs along 3rd, centered on the trees. And the legend says that it's an edging, and it doesn't make sense that that would be a location of edging. And I'm just kind of curious, is that supposed to represent something?
Yeah, it does say edge or typical. I am wondering if that was a CAD line that they had to make sure that they lined up all the vegetation, and they just forgot to turn that line off when they did the printing.
I'm guessing that's probably true.
Because it does certainly seem to line up perfectly with the center of all the trees. And then the edging, I do see the edging around the plantings at the entrance, the shrubs and the grasses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's probably a CAD line that they forgot to turn off.
I got a quick question on the when you were talking about the restrictive ordinances, or most restrictive. The middle one, what's the definition of it should be completely screened? Is that from, for the 55-foot silo, is that 55 feet of screening, or is that from a person's eyeballs staring from the property line at the silo? It's like that intermediate height. Is there any guidance on that either?
Let me look at in the staff report for that section, which usually has the entire code and not just kind of the abbreviated that I do. So I'm going to share my screen here. So outdoor storage shall be completely screened from any adjacent street, sidewalk, public walkway, or public park. So being adjacent, it would be basically you put yourself on the nearest street, sidewalk, walkway, and from where you're standing is the screening blocking the view of the outdoor storage. In this case, I could probably say no, but that's also because both section D here, the third one, or subsection C, it says that this screening cannot exceed 6 feet in height. So previously, they had proposed a 16-foot wall that probably would provide that screening on the adjacent sidewalk or the adjacent walkway, but then it would have needed a variance to be taller than the 6 foot of screening here, or the 6.5 feet of fencing or wall in the fencing and wall section of the code.
Right. I was just thinking, even if this sentence wasn't there, if it was an unlimited height of screening, would we even be in a position to tell them you got to put 55 foot of screening? Does there even exist such a thing, or even 25 feet if you're standing on the Gateway Trail looking out? I don't know, just a thought. I was just curious what you had to think about that. So thank you.
I think that's actually, that brings up the point that normally, the code isn't written, I don't think, to deal with outdoor storage of that height. Normally, it's more your typical outdoor storage of, smaller equipment, or just not something that's 55 to 60 feet high. Certainly, I don't think anyone would want a 55-foot wall.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could build one, but I don't know how attractive that would be.
You'd have to have a screen for the screen,
You could put quite a mural on something like that. Could show movies.
Yeah. Oh, good point.
My question is, why do they call it storage unit?
I'm sorry, Alan, can you repeat that question?
Why do they call it a storage unit? Why is it just part of the manufacturing process?
Because let's see, the answer is in the definition of outdoor storage. I don't know that I can pull it up right now, but outdoor storage is equipment that is not placed in a building. The silos and associated conveyors and the like is equipment. And so the definition of outdoor storage is equipment that is not within a building.
So don't silos store Asphalt?
They have piles of rocks out there right now. That's storage.
Right, but that exists today, and that's a legal non-conforming use. We are not addressing the asphalt plant or the crushing operation, but you are correct. That is outdoor storage, but that's a legal non-conforming use.
That was in existence for many years, is essentially what you're saying.
Correct, correct. But it would meet the definition. It's just legal non-conforming, so we don't have the right to address that rock piles.
So essentially, it seems to me what we're getting down to is of the options available and realistic, which is more desirable from the city's perspective. Web
Chair, can I add something? It looked like Councilmember Wong was raising her hand.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I was just wondering if there were any environmental health considerations since there's housing nearby, and though it's outdoor storage, there's an increase in activity. So is there some sort of air particulates and things like that that should be considered as this goes in?
I can answer that in two ways. One, there are Minnesota Pollution Control Agency regulations, which include the requirement of having a bag house, and they do call out on their plan where this new bag house is. Regarding local regulations, this would fall into the legal non-conforming use category. They produce asphalt there now. We wouldn't be able to propose any local regulations more extensive than what was in place when they started the operation. But they do need to meet the Pollution Control Agency regulations. That's one of the conditions in the permit. They're showing all the infrastructure that would be required by the PCA.
Thank you.
Let me just ask a clarifying question too. You had mentioned the silos and associated equipment. The scale is a piece of associated equipment. Is there any other equipment that we know about?
Yes, and I will go to page 20 of the staff report, and in the lower, well, kind of lower left-hand corner, kind of the middle, it would be the section called Keynote Legend, and I'll zoom in to it a little bit and share my screen. So they not only show the kind of the boxes of where this equipment would be, but it's all listed here.
Okay, thanks.
So A is oil storage tanks next to the existing oil storage tank. B is the control house where the person would be operating, and it's not shown, but I think it's in this building here. C is the control house, another one, which is here. D is the silo scale, which they're showing underneath the silos. E is the dryer, which is this last piece of equipment before the conveyors would convey it up to the silo. F, just below the dryer, is the bag house. That is the piece of equipment that is used to remove particulates from emissions. G are these boxes on the east side. They're the storage bins. So all the different aggregates go in here and then get fed into the dryer. And then H is the fencing listed here. And then the last one was J, which is do not disturb existing trees on the property line. So it's really A, oil storage tank, C, control room, D, silo scales, E, dryer, F, bag house. The only piece that's not listing is the conveyors, and that's because they move. they would be used at the rock storage when they need them there. They'll be moved here when they're needed here. But the conveyors basically feed material from all these different pieces of equipment.
Okay, so I guess what I was really getting at is the new equipment. There's the 3 silos, the new scale. Is the rest of this already there?
The rest of it is there, but it's going to be replaced, both for updating and particularly the storage bins. They need more storage bins to be able to provide the different mixes in the different silos. But you are right. Most of that equipment is there today. It would be really the new oil storage tanks, and the 3 new silos are really the new pieces, or the additional pieces that don't exist today. The rest of that is things that will be updated as a part of.
So there's an oil tank as well? That's new?
There is one oil tank. They're just listing it here as this existing silo. They're showing next to that the new oil storage tanks which would house the different types of oil to make the different types of mixes of asphalt.
Okay. But those aren't considered new equipment?
Well, it's the associated equipment.
Okay, so part of the associated equipment.
Hmm?
Okay. I mean, associated equipment is so generic that, from a conditional use standpoint, that could be almost anything.
Yeah,
in the future.
But they did provide this legend of what is the associated equipment.
Well, it's kind of like the associated equipment as detailed on the site plan or whatever, whichever
Correct. Yep.
that is. Okay.
But Chair Barton, I think your point just before Councilmember Wong spoke, definitely, I want some feedback on the type of fencing. Would decorative wrought iron really provide the complete screening necessary? That I think we'd need some serious consideration about. But are there other types of fencing or walls that were 6 feet tall that would provide a better screening or a better aesthetic? I think that's really what this comes down to.
Right.
But you guys can, you're the planning commission. You could find other issues as well, but that's the one that is the largest concern to me, is chain link fencing with plastic slats the best fencing or wall material to meet the objective of complete screening?
Well, coming down to that is really why we continued the discussion. That's really what it boils down to, is what's the way to screen this as best can be done, given the fact that it's not going to be something that's 55 feet high.
Yeah. Some comments that I have. It seems like we're blending the 3, requirements here. One of them is the overall reaching of what is what looks the best for the city. And this has kind of been stated already, Eric, or, earlier. I don't think it's realistic to expect us to go 55 foot high. If we stay at 6 foot, I think having a solid barrier of some sort, so you're not looking at grade, you're not looking at what's going on behind there. You still got the stuff above, from the elevators and so on. But if we come through with some murals, I think that in lieu of screening, that may be something that helps some, given the circumstances. That might be, to me, a reasonable compromise, I guess, in terms of way in which we could move ahead. I do not like the idea of trying to put chain link fence. That just seems like that would deteriorate pretty quickly, and the plastic on those are never very good looking after the sun hits it for about 2 years. You know, the wrought iron seems like you just see right through that. And what I think we really are trying to stop people from having to look at, you know, the industrial portion of it. That's the part that we're trying to screen. 6 feet, I think, probably screens enough of it. I was frankly, a little bit surprised that we didn't see something with the 16-foot high walls. I had thought we had talked about rather than having it big, you know, be one big long monolith, to vary the location, you know, how far from the property line the walls would be, and to create space there for some type of landscaping. So that's where the trees and so on would go. So, you know, I don't want to micromanage how Schieske's does their business, but at the same time, I guess I'd state that I'd be open to either of those kind of options. Probably the more practical one is a 6-foot wall type of situation.
Done.
Yeah, I drove by the Public Works after the meeting and took a look, and I do like the high fence because there's a lot of dirt around there. There's a lot of trucks, so I was kind of disappointed they took the 16-foot off the table as far as what they wanted to do, just because of, you know, the type of work they do and be able to hide a little more behind it.
Patrick.
I think I'm feeling very much the same about the fence versus the wall. I thought some combination thereof would be good. And if they use a 6-foot high fence, I think you could potentially use a black coated fence with dark colored, you know, like black slats, and it becomes a little bit more attractive than a galvanized plain metal fence. So I think you could probably justify doing some portion of fence and some portion of wall. And I kind of like the idea of that maybe there's variation. I think that's essentially what Rick was saying. And I would encourage that. And now then it's just a question of, okay, how much can we put that into a condition and say, you know, do walls up to 16 feet, then they need the variance if it's over 6. So, you know, there maybe is some possibility there, but they have removed that request for variance from their application, I believe. So I'm not sure that we're in a position to say, well, we should give you a variance if you're not asking for it. So that doesn't really work. And I'm not sure a 6-foot high wall is any better than a 6-foot high fence.
I agree.
So
I don't think a 6-foot wall is, I think to me, what the value is of the wall is that you can't see through it at all.
Well, you can't see through a slatted fence.
Slatted one? Uh-huh.
No.
Okay.
No,
And
I mean,
I guess
if you got up close and tried to peek through a crack, yeah, maybe you could, but basically it's an opaque. And I thought if it was black on black, or something along those lines, I think that would be, you can do different colors, but I thought black would be a good color. It tends to look pretty good. And it lasts reasonably well. The other thing I was wondering, and maybe Eric can answer this. I thought I saw somewhere in here a statement that the fence is 5 feet from the property line.
Correct. And
it's shown as 10 on the drawing, and room enough for the trees.
right. So I'll share my screen again. That is located within the keynote legend for H. The statement here says replace salvage existing fence line, install 6-foot chain link fence with plastic slats offset 5 feet from property line. Now they do show it 10 feet, and with the landscape plan, that certainly shows enough enough room to put that landscaping. But the statement in the staff report was taking the language from that condition. If you are concerned, make sure you can include in your condition that, the recommendation is based on the provided site plan indicating, the fence location 10 feet from the property line.
That would be my recommendation.
So you're recommending to add that condition, Patrick?
I think you need that for the landscaping to work. You need the 10 feet.
Okay.
And I think that makes sense when you have a conflict on a plan sheet like this, where the setback, dimension drawn is different than the setback described. So to clarify which of the contradictory statements are you basing your recommendation on?
Anything else, Patrick?
No.
Eric?
Chair Barton, can I just address the variance issue?
Mhm.
I encourage you to state that you think to meet the objectives of the code, a fence taller than 6 feet is, desired or should be evaluated. We don't have that request today. The application was actually submitted through the city, through Shifsky's attorney. I'm sure he had a number of concerns, but one of them is one of the conditions about expanding an MU3 non-conforming use is that it would comply with all other sections of the code. So he was directing his staff to not do it, or, Shifsky's staff to not do anything that would conflict. Now, at the same time, if you received a variance, then you would be in compliance with all other sections of the code. But he wanted to make sure that the submittal met the requirements of the expansion of a non-conforming use within the MU3 district.
Eric, any thoughts on preference?
I was just looking at the Google Street View. I noticed in the plans, they're talking about salvaging and reinstalling the chain link, and it looks like it's just plain galvanized chain link out there today. So I don't know, can we, as the planning commission, could we tell them, do we have the authority to tell them that's not a good idea? We want you to put in brand new black chain link fence with black slats in it?
Yes, you do. And I had a conversation with the city attorney about this. A conditional use permit is you can put in conditions that have a nexus with the impact caused by the request. And screening is probably the biggest measure to mitigate that impact. So a condition that justifiably provides better aesthetics on the screening is well within your legal rights to propose.
Okay. I mean, I like Patrick. I know you mentioned the black fencing. I couldn't find any, or I can't think of any examples, but I swear I've seen that, and I agree it does look better. I just think that green, the typical green slats, over time they get kind of sun bleached and they don't look very good. So yeah, I'm on board with maybe a more robust slats in chain link, or I don't know. I'm sure they make 6-foot precast walls, concrete walls, or even block walls. I don't know if you can stack masonry blocks 6 foot high, if that's something they'd want to pursue or not. But I'm on board with something a little bit more visual.
I'd like to add a little bit to my comments. I appreciate, Eric, you mentioned you looked at Google Street View. One of the things that I think makes the site look pretty less than well kept is the fact that they have lots and lots of scrub trees growing along the perimeter that are completely out of control. And I think adding a dozen trees is wonderful, but I really think that part of the landscaping equation that would really do well is for them to go in and, if you will, thin the scrub trees that are there to make them more intentional. Keep good trees, cut down bad trees, kind of a thing. A landscaper could easily make recommendation in that regard. I think that would go a long way to make. Now, you could argue that there's good screening there right now because some of these trees are 16, 20 feet tall or more. But at the same time, they're random, out of control, and not managed in any way. There's dead ones, and they're clumped together in weird ways and stuff like that. So my feeling is we should make a condition of the landscaping to, if you will, I don't know how to state it, but clean up what's there along the perimeter.
Well, if I could, if you wish to make a condition like that, it would be something along the lines of a professional arborist or forester evaluate the existing vegetation and remove or modify as recommended for healthy and full height and girth of the plants. I mean, you're right that there are times where if you have too many trees next to each other, they don't have their full foliage because they're competing with each other.
And maybe include in that retain suitable overstory trees that are providing existing screening.
Yep.
Something like that. I think that might be appropriate. And I think if you put the arborist, professional arborist in there, that's pretty easy for them to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the other option on that is we have a city arborist as well.
Yeah, but I don't know that we have a mechanism to to compensate what we would normally do, like having a city engineer, is that our city engineer would consult and review what the applicant's engineer had. I think the city arborist is going to be helpful in evaluating what the consultant's arborist is recommending, and is that the right recommendation?
Because it's not just trees that are along that perimeter, there's just weeds as well. It's not a landscaped area. That's really what you're talking about. The landscaping section is about landscaping, not just letting things run wild. Al, any preferences?
I haven't been on the wall, so
Did you say wall?
yes. Just
What?
like just like the city's got around their property.
What, the 16 foot or 6?
16.
Okay. Lots of opinions, but I had difficulty with all of them. But my biggest concern with walls is they're just graffiti magnets. You see that on the Public Works building. You see that actually along the gateway, right by Rotary Park. And that's a difficult thing to stop. But if we were to say the preference is a 16-foot wall, I guess then the issue does become what I think Rick was talking about, which is really articulation of some kind. So it's not just a long, flat surface,
Yeah.
which is not attractive for the most part, even if it's muraled. And it would be a while probably before it got muraled in any way, if that's even a verb. So I don't have necessarily a problem with the 6-foot fence, but I do think it needs to be as solid as possible. And I just don't know about the various grades of chain link and the lifespan of slats if they're plastic. I don't even know if there are other options for slats. Maybe some of you know more about fencing than I do.
Patrick, can you clarify what you were talking about? As you were talking, I was thinking that you were talking about some type of a wrought iron type of fencing with slats that would fill it in, or were you talking about a chain link with black slatting?
Chain link, black chain link with black slatting. I was thinking of something like, well, this is a pretty good one. Can I share a screen?
I think I need to promote you, I think. Let me see here. So you don't have share screen on the bottom?
I have a share screen now.
Okay.
So let me know if you can see this one.
Yep.
Yes.
Now that's a very attractive fence in my opinion, and opaque. This large image here. I just did a quick search because they're basically, it's a vertical slat that goes into a standard chain link. And you can get different kinds of slats that are some more opaque than others. But that one got my attention that I think would be a suitable solution, I think.
Well, it's better than just chain link, let's put it that way, or some, like you said, green or silver.
Right, and the poles and the hardware and the chain link fabric are all black. So it's not just the silver galvanized stuff. It looks a lot less institutional in my opinion.
Yeah.
Chair Barton, can I add something?
Yes.
I think if you're moving in this direction, one option would be we can set up a requirement for them to periodically inspect the fence and replace any chain link or slatting that is in disrepair.
Yeah.
Yes.
A very good condition.
Yes. Because that really is the issue. I mean, I actually have black chain link way out in the back of my yard, and I like the black. My concern is always been with the slatting, because I think even now some of the chain link, they have some with slatting and it's just all coming apart. So it's just want to make.
We can require a condition that, whether it's every 5 years, every 3 years, every 10 years, they inspect and repair the fence. I would just recommend a year, so that way, two things. It's easier for code enforcement. We can come 6 years later and go, show us your report 3 years ago that you inspected this. And then it's also not arbitrary of just periodic. What is periodic?
Mm-hmm.
But regarding the variance, they did not request the variance. So I would really discourage a recommendation that requires a variance.
Yeah.
I think it would be perfectly appropriate to provide direction to the city council that you find that additional heighting, such as the previous, proposal of 16 feet, has its advantages, and that should be continued to be evaluated. But it's just not what we posted for a public hearing on. So we can't provide a recommendation that exceeds the code.
Yeah, so if we're talking about fencing, then, I mean, as far as the only other possible truly solid would be either a 6-foot wall or some other material, and I don't know that that's any better. Oh, that's an interesting question. Did you see the message from Lisa?
Yeah.
Well, decorative rock, not scrap rock.
Oh,
That's kind of like the mural or the paintings. Anyway,
Yeah,
are we?
those Gabon walls are becoming more popular, but it's bound by galvanized metal, and as they, I mean, it's like any wall or any fence. I think fences more than walls, they require maintenance. I mean,
Yes.
they're never gonna. They don't maintain the appearance as they were installed unless you maintain.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I kind of wonder whether or not the trees along the existing fence are going to survive a replacement of the fence or an upgrade of the fence, whether we upgrade it or make it a wall or, I don't know if those trees are going to be there. I suspect that they're going to much prefer to just, take out the whole thing and put in new fencing.
But the plan should show what's being removed.
Well, they just have a comment of saving existing trees. That doesn't cover bushes or shrubs, but they're showing, as Councilmember Blees showed, a 10-foot setback. They should be able to install that fence from the inside of the property. They shouldn't have to be installing the fence from Gateway Trail or 3rd Street. Now they'll have to go in and remove some to be able to plant the new trees that they are planting, but they shouldn't have to remove the existing vegetation that's on the property line or within 10 feet of the property line to install their fence.
Okay, so what I'm just trying to visualize this, I guess we would end up with a variety of volunteer trees selectively based on the arborist judgment with a fence another 5 feet in from the existing fence. Is that accurate?
Well, we should clarify that they're saying they're going to remove or salvage the existing fence. So I think we should really, not make that kind of an option. They're going to remove it. Now, I think maybe what they mean by salvage is if some of the fence posts can still be used, they would try to use some of the fence. But we can clarify that they're removing the existing fence.
But we're trying to get away from the galvanized. We're trying to go to a black, I assume, anodized or, fairly durable black
Well,
surface.
some of the black chain link is actually black vinyl coated. It's basically a vinyl coating on the outside of galvanized to make that black appearance. The posts are normally an anodized aluminum.
I put up with one in 97 when we moved over to our other house when the kids were young, and it was brown, and it's held up very well as far as like you said, the vinyl or the plastic that's on it's done very well. So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had a tree fall on mine and it didn't even scratch it.
it's a good fence.
It's a good fence, as a matter of fact. That's really what it comes down to is quality
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
when it comes to fencing. So have you been
So that would be replacement rather than salvage.
Yeah, we should state that.
remove and replace?
Yeah.
Have you been documenting these various conditions, Eric?
No, none of those. I mean, as long as you're not saying that the fence is taller than 6 feet, none of those should be variance conditions.
No. For the conditional use request itself? Are we adding things as conditions? That's what I'm asking. Have you been
Yeah,
down?
none of, all those conditions are things that address the aesthetics or the screening of the equipment, which is the conditional use. So I think as long as we are not requiring that the fencing's over 6 feet, I think everything we've discussed is, compliant with it.
My question is, do we need to be that specific in the recommendation that we make and in the conditional use permit itself to say certain things? Just like we say things like you have to do this and you have to do that. Get your permits, do this, do that. When we're talking
So, if I may, what I have is 4 things. And none of these 4 things are in the existing code. So I think if we don't have them, the only thing we have to fall back on code. Now, 4 things are clarifying that the new fence will be 10 feet from the property line instead of the 5 feet label. That's 1. Second is, modifying the note of repair and salvage replace and salvage to just be replace existing fence. Then the third would be the certified arborist evaluating the existing vegetation and providing recommendations for removals to encourage the mature growth of the existing trees. And then the last would be the black vinyl or the black chain link fence with black vinyl slatting that would be inspected or at least every 5 years and repaired as necessary.
Okay.
If we didn't have any of those 4, there's nothing in the code that we'd be able to cite to say, hey, you're not doing it.
Right.
I thought we were going to do yearly for the fencing.
Yeah, annually.
Annually, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what you had, Eric? Annual?
I did not, but that is you're the planning commission. I'm just saying we want a year. We don't want it to just be kind of arbitrary as periodic.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Annual.
I have a question.
Yes.
What makes us experts all of a sudden on fencing?
Kind of 2 things. One, they've told us what kind of fencing they want to install. And if we don't, as the planning commission, think that it's the most appropriate, we can come up with an alternative.
What else?
Like I said, what makes us experts at that particular fence doesn't work?
We're not, but we don't need to be to look at aesthetic issues and maintenance issues, because that's really what this is about, screening issues. I mean, it's up to us to make a recommendation on how we think is best, given the circumstances, to provide screening, visual screening.
Yeah.
But we're talking about color. We're talking about the quality of materials, wear and tear, maintenance, things that certainly we're not saying exactly what they have to go by. We're just saying this is what we want it to look like. And we want it to last.
Mhm.
I mean, we'll never be able to cover up. I mean, they got their mounds, so it's just going to be some attractive going around to kind of block it off, because you can't ever block what they do.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
But I think it covers about 80% of it.
At least-
At eye level.
At eye level,
Oh,
exactly.
Patrick Blease, we'd have to have a 6'5" fence to cover. eye level.
My eye level still, if I was up against the fence, I wouldn't be able to see their 55-foot tower.
Okay.
But if you step back 10 feet and you can see it. So it's all a matter of from where are you screening? And that's the thing our ordinance does not state.
Mm-hmm.
And really can't. There, particularly in a case, like I say, in a case like this one, this is like trying to screen a 4 or 5 story building. You can't,
Yeah, you'd be surprised what some ordinances have in them for screening requirements, where we have been known to have to put together sight lines drawings to show that if you're in a car On this road, you're screening what you're supposed to screen, and it's in the ordinance that way sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to some degree,
Is there
it's,
opportunity? Excuse me. I was just wondering if there's a possibility that increasing tree coverage and as they grow in the long term, that would help with the visibility of the activities on site.
in addition to, I mean, they're meeting the standard. Well, actually, the exceeding
Standard, yeah.
the standard. So I'd be a little hesitant to require more than that. I mean, certainly we could encourage it, but until you actually see what it looks like once it's in, it's hard to know. Even there might, where you would do that or where it might be needed.
I don't know how big when the white pine gets to be mature, how big of a, how far out is it going to go?
Right.
I think that if they do have the arborist capture the trees that are existing that are good trees, I think you get a lot of screening existing that's of value. In fact, you'll get much taller screening than we'll get on the initial planting of the new stuff. So I think that combination would be a pretty good landscape screen, actually.
Yeah. It's just getting it a little bit under control so it looks like it's landscaping.
It looks like they did it on purpose, yes.
Exactly. There was an intention there. So thank you for going through those, Eric. That's what I was actually getting at, is what were we thinking of adding as conditions to the ones that are already in the recommendation. So does anybody have any others that came up?
Yeah, do we want to include something about the murals?
Yeah, working with the city on that?
Working with the city?
Yeah.
To develop a plan for murals on the silos.
Or artwork, if you want to call it.
Or artwork, sure, great.
Yeah, I do like that idea.
Yeah.
That would be extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? Did anything else come up that popped into anybody's mind that Eric didn't list in those 5 additional conditions? So we are talking about, when we talk about the black vinyl sledding, we're talking about 6 foot. We might as well clarify it's 6 feet in the condition.
Yep.
I want to see a 3-foot one.
No, that one debatably, I'm not sure if that would be carried over, that they're proposing a 6 foot now, but since we're changing it, I think that's appropriate to carry that forward, make that clear.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else that occurred to anyone? Are you comfortable, Eric?
So it will end up being 9 conditions, the 4 in the resolution and the 5 additional that we just discussed. I could repeat those again if you want, but I think I'm pretty clear on the 9 conditions that we're discussing.
Okay. Anybody need the new ones repeated, or did you capture them all?
I caught them. I heard them.
Okay. All right, then, do you have do we have anything else to discuss, or are we ready to make a recommendation? Let me ask that first. Maybe you could bring up the recommendation page. Do you have that in your packet?
I do. Give me 1 second, because I'll bring it up on the packet itself instead of, I got it on 2 slides in the presentation.
Presentation, whichever.
Well, here we go. So there's the recommended motion and then the 4 existing conditions. And we discussed the 5 additional ones that would be added to it.
I did have one recommendation on the initial statement. And that would be to recommend that the council approve a conditional use permit for outdoor storage of three new asphalt silos. And I guess it's a vehicle scale, as an accessory use at 2310 Highway 36 East. Because we're not giving the permit to Shifsky. This is really a conditional use. It's a land use, so it's a property that we give the conditional use to. So anybody who takes over that property at any time, this conditional use runs with that property, regardless of who owns it. So I want to be really specific on what we're allowing as far as outdoor storage.
So your proposal is to strike amendment and add 4 outdoor storage.
Right.
And then add vehicle in front of scale.
Well, I think that's what it is, so we might as well be specific.
I have that in my notes if that's the motion you want to make.
Okay.
Okay.
And then, yes, I can't tell who that is now.
Are you okay if I take this down?
Yeah. Who was speaking?
I will move that.
Oh, okay, okay. So you're okay with that?
Yes,
Okay,
as we just discussed.
okay,
So, yeah, that would include the 4 conditions in the staff report, as well as the 5 that we've discussed,
right.
and the changes that you made to the beginning portion.
Okay, then I have a motion by Rick. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by John. Any further discussion? If not, Lisa, oh, I don't see Lisa's name up there. Oh, there she is. Lisa, did you want to take the roll?
Chair Barton,
Aye.
Commissioner Blees,
Aye.
Commissioner Brenna,
Aye.
Commissioner Geldman,
Aye.
Commissioner Mungy,
Aye.
Commissioner Warm.
Aye.
Ready, that's unanimous. So that I expect we'll go to the council on the 15th. I guess that's the date.
Yes. The expectation is to go on July 15th.
Okay, then thank you, everyone. That's kind of a tough one. Not technically hard, just thinking about it hard. Reports from staff. The July 1st Planning Commission meeting.
Yeah, so we labeled it July 1st, but it's kind of going to be total July meetings. Both with no new applications coming in this week and us addressing, Shifsky's, we don't have any items that need to be placed on the July 1st agenda. We were going to recommend whether we move the meeting to the 15th of July due to the 4th of July holiday. I guess what we would recommend now is that we cancel the July 1st meeting because we don't have any action items. We could always discuss, or if something comes in the next week or two, holding a special meeting on July 15th to address that. July 15th or beyond, no decision has been made yet, but with the governor changing his executive orders and the city council has been in the council chambers, I would expect some direction soon about us moving back to in-person meetings. I guess my question would be, but legally, I don't think you have to answer now, but if you could inform the city if anybody has any medical issues that would be detrimental to having an in-person meeting, please inform city staff. Being medical issues, we we don't want to be talking about those publicly, but just make us aware. There is maybe the possibility of doing a hybrid meeting where individuals could come in, but we've been meeting remotely because of the governor's executive order. With those appearing to be changing, we would expect that we'd be in person soon. Sorry?
Rick?
One comment. On the 15th of July, I have penciled in North St. Paul Planning Commission and EC Commission, the Economic Development Commission.
That was scheduled some time ago.
Yep.
Right.
It would just be that if we had to do, something to meet the 60-day clock, which it doesn't appear that we do, we could always have a special meeting before or after that just for the planning commission.
I see. Okay, thank you.
So the planning,
Right now, it doesn't look like we have anything that's going to hit that 60-day review clock that we would need to have a special.
Okay.
okay, but it looks like potentially we will be meeting on the 15th, the joint meeting.
The joint meeting, yes. We will provide you information if that joint meeting would be in person or that would stay virtual. I'm not sure if that one would be in person, particularly with that large of a group, but we'll communicate to you the location, but keep the 15th on your calendar as a joint meeting.
Okay, thank you.
And then the final thing I would say about July meetings is I talked with the city administrator about providing him some proposals, cost proposals on additional zoning amendments so we can compare what budget we have left for this year and start budgeting for next year. What I had on my list was the sign ordinance, short-term rentals, and addressing community gardens or urban agriculture more fully. I guess I'm asking for input, but it could be offline if you have some thoughts about any other ordinance sections that you would like or priority of those three. So that way, when I talk with the city administrator, we can appropriately determine what budget we have to move forward those activities. And my last update would be that on July 1st, June 1st, the city council passed the shoreland variance for Mr. Anderson, but they continued the Bradley Plumbing IUP for more information on where that property is at in the code compliance for their property, and then continued the text amendments, acknowledging that they have not spent as much time on these as you have, and they want to have a work session in which I can provide more detail about the changes. I've talked with the city administrator, but we're not sure whether that would be on June 15th or that possibly could be July 20th, because I will be out of town for the July 6th regular council meeting.
Okay. One thing on the coming, and I do think also we ought to take a look at our parking requirements. Not, the table. Here's how many vehicles are, we've talked about this before, and we have run into that issues with that, where they just don't seem either realistic, either too many or too few in some cases. And I think it would be a good idea.
We certainly came to that with the schools, but I think there's a number of other uses there.
Yes, that has happened with other uses as well. And I don't think they've been looked at for a long time, but it's also related in some degree to the comp plan, because there's an emphasis on, non-motorized transportation. And when you have more parking spaces required in code than you need, you're not encouraging non-motorized transportation. Okay. Oh, I did want to ask too, once the decision is made regarding the joint meeting on the 15th, I would like for there to be an agenda.
I'll talk with the city administrator, but maybe it would be best if you, being the chair and the chair of the EDA, talk to help develop that agenda.
Yeah,
We can work on that.
it's a tricky one because the EDA actually is not a department of the city. It's a separate entity.
Yeah,
So I always get-
but this is a joint meeting with it.
No, I understand that. It's just the schedules and everything don't necessarily mesh. Okay. Excellent. We get July 1st off just in time for the holiday. All right, reports from Council Liaison. Councilmember Wong.
You. First, I would like to thank you all for all your work on your recommendations. Eric had already stated that the decisions on the other the variances and the text amendment and the IUP. Other than that, at this time, I haven't heard any changes or updates since the last time about the Highway 36 and 120, so no updates there today. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Right. Commissioner input. Patrick, do you have anything? You have to unmute. Patrick?
I was looking for my mute button. Sorry about that. I was speaking, but you couldn't hear me. No, I actually don't have anything new to report.
Rick?
Nothing to add.
Okay. John?
Nothing.
Eric?
I just got a quick shameless plug for, I serve on the organizing committee for the Minnesota Water Resources Conference. And we've been meeting over the past, 6 months and trying to decide if we're going to do it virtual again this year. It was virtual last year. And we're going to do it virtual again this year, this fall. So it's going to be October 19th and 20th. And if you guys or any of you are interested in water quality or research or implementation, we look at BMPs and really looking at statewide. So I helped kind of form up we take in a bunch of abstracts and we form up a program. And it's my first year serving on that. I took it over for my supervisor, and it's been a treat to learn a little bit more about water quality modeling and research. So I would just put a plug for you guys in if you wanted to attend. That'll be coming up in mid to late October this year. So
you'll remind us closer to the date, right?
Sure, absolutely. It was just fresh on my mind because we met this morning for a couple hours forming up the program. So I figured I'd let you guys know.
Eric, who's represented in that group? Like what organizations and stuff?
There are quite a few. It's put on by the University of Minnesota. I'm one of the state agency representatives. The Department of Health is represented, the PCA, the DNR. There's a couple of private companies that do, Ron Lee from SRF is on there. Consulting firms that work on water quality projects. A lot of researchers, some U of M staff are on there. So there's probably like 35 to 40 of us on the organizing committee for it.
Wow, that's a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of talking heads. It's hard to get a word in sometimes. So it's, but it's good to have that many minds on it sometimes.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Al?
I'll let you know that the toy show is now back open. Been open for the last 2-3 weeks. Every Tuesday and Thursday from 10:30 to 12:30.
Okay.
So if you know of anybody that needs toys, there's a lot of them.
Okay. I think I saw that in the city news
Right.
email. Yeah. Good. Okay. Well, I actually had just a couple of things, and it's really kind of a just a couple comments on what our city planner brought up regarding the text amendments and the council tabling. And I think I just happened to see that end portion of that discussion, and it struck me, and I think it's really good. It's a good lesson, I think, that I'll share, and that is that one of the comments that was made had to do with the 10 foot from the curb parking, and the lead up to it made me realize that just reflected the common misunderstanding there is about code and how it's written and what it actually says. And that's just because council people, they're not nearly as familiar with the code, because that's what our job is. You know, we need to be, they don't. They rely on us. But it was kind of a situation where somebody's house was set back 30 feet from the street, and they were concerned now they were going to lose parking space, which, of course, it wouldn't have any impact. The code, you know, the change that we're making, other than to increase potentially their parking space. So I just thought that was an interesting example of how so many people who don't delve into the code or aren't required to the way we do, it's difficult for them to understand what we're talking about sometimes, or what we're recommending, or why we're recommending it. So I just thought I'd pass that on. I thought it was a good example of it. But the other piece that made me do a little research and try to figure out how it came about had to do with the lowering of the lot area in the R1 district. I had to go back and see where that came about, because I know it was related to us adding townhomes and duplexes to that district. They weren't allowed there before, and we had a lot of discussion, should we or shouldn't we, all that kind of thing. And I think what happened was probably just an error in the table, because the lot area table for R1 only listed single-family resident before. So it just had the 7920, because that's what it was. And then that was lowered to 5967 in a subsequent table. And I think that was meant to be for the townhomes and duplex uses, not the single family. Because as I was trying to think back to how could that have happened, and I think it might have been just an error in building the table, because we've never had anything but single family in that district before. But the reason I mention it is because it does need, it can't be what it is in the table, because it would be well above what's allowed by the comp plan in that district, and the code has to be consistent with the comp plan. So I'd already brought that to Eric's attention, but I just thought I'd mention it because maybe it's something we can just have Eric change, because it does appear to me that's exactly what happened. We just took what was allowed for duplexes and townhomes in the R2 and stuck it up in the R1, but didn't label it as duplex townhome. That's what I think happened. That's just my assessment of it. And I don't know if that's something, or if we're going to have to, make a new recommendation in order to deal with that.
Elaine, I kind of understand what you're talking about. I would need to double check the exact process, but my recollection was a little different than yours. We moved from, but it also doesn't match completely some of the numbers you provided. We reduced the width from 60 feet to 50 feet.
Right.
And we have lots that are already set in depth, generally of 125 feet. So my intention was to reduce the lot area so that a 125 foot deep lot could be reduced to 50 feet in width. but that would have been 6,250 feet. I think I understand your comment. I need to evaluate everything you brought up to evaluate whether it's an error or whether it was intentional.
Well, in either case, I think that to be at 5.5, which is the maximum in the R1, that's what the 7920 reflects, is the maximum. That I looked back as far as I could to find out where we first talked about that. And I think that was back in 2020 when that particular thing first came up. And we knew we had to change the lot area for R2 because that density number increased with the 2040 plan. The R1 didn't. It remained where it was in the prior comprehensive plan. And that's what struck me. But it just seemed so odd to me that what I think was in our staff report was not the 6250, it was 5967, which is exactly what the R2 was for townhome and duplex. And that's why I thought, oh, maybe that was just
and again, I'll look into it tonight. Yeah. I can't provide you any better information on whether it's an error, whether it was intentional. I get your point, but I can't resolve that tonight.
Okay, the point that I'm really making is what I'm trying to get at is when we make a recommendation, we don't want to recommend something that in a zoning district goes above the maximum density allowed in the comprehensive plan for that district. So I'm just more interested in, regardless of what caused it, it seems to me we need to be consistent with the comprehensive plan in the R1. We are in the other districts. It's just the R1 for single family.
I think I hear you. I'll look into it.
Yeah. Okay. All righty. That's why this gets so tricky and detailed and onerous sometimes. It's all those little things that you have to keep your eyes peeled for. All righty. I don't think we have anything else then.
Chair Barton, Lisa has raised her hand.
Oh, okay. Which Lisa?
Lisa Ritchie.
Okay.
I just wanted to remind everybody that to the best of our knowledge, the anticipated date for civic clerk to be rolled out for the commissioners is, well, it'll be the beginning of July. So I don't have an exact date yet, but that's what they're anticipating. I thank you for your patience while we're working through getting the civic clerk up and going and the agendas being formatted. I know you guys have gone through the growing pains along with me and hence some of the reformatting, Alan Worm, all on one line and the meeting minutes not attached appropriately. I think I attached them as an item rather than a file, and that's why they weren't included in the packet. But that's all technical issues. I'm definitely learning every day as we go, and I appreciate your patience with that. I promise you I will carefully review everything going forward to minimize any of these from happening again. Thankfully, our URL worked this time. We didn't have to deal with that, but I see there are a few other nuances that I need to concentrate on, and I appreciate your patience as we roll out this new civic clerk.
Thanks. And it was nice the URL worked just perfectly this time. When it's rolled out, if it's going to be happening in July, are we really going to notice anything different that we need to get any
Yes.
training?
You will be logging into the civic clerk portal. And it's my understanding that I will be trained from your view of what you'll be seeing, and then I'll be able to work with you to train you on that. It is entirely different, but it shouldn't take long for everyone to be up to speed with learning how to navigate.
Okay.
And we will be notified of that as that happens?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Lisa. Okay, I guess we're ready For a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Al makes the motion, we adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by John. All those in favor will say aye. Lisa, you want to take the roll?
Chair Barton,
Aye.
Commissioner Blees,
Aye.
Commissioner Brenna,
Aye.
Commissioner Geldman,
Aye.
Commissioner Mungy,
Aye.
Commissioner Wise, excuse me, Commissioner Warm.
Aye.
All righty. We're adjourned at, what time is it? 8:06. Enjoy the first car show and your 4th of July. I guess see you sometime later in that month.
Good night.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Take care.
Good night.
Have a good one.